go to college because Daddy was smart. And then when he finished, Aunt Esme was supposed to go to college. She was young. But Aunt Esme married, well, real young. She married the man that was teaching her in school, an older man. And my grandmother said she had never had anything. They had this shoebox under the bed. When the boys got ready to go out, they got this $5, put it in the little pail, and they give them a quarter. But rest assured, the next morning it had to be put back in that shoebox. Grandpa Reuben.
Gotcha.
But that was prestigious.
Okay.
But
so what about Grandpa Reuben and his kids then?
Grandpa Reuben,
Yeah.
Daddy,
Right.
Spencer, R.T., Alonzo, and Aunt Esme.
Okay.
They had a set of twins, but they passed away.
Okay.
It was just only one girl, Aunt Esme.
So what about you and your brothers then?
Oh, well, that's a sad story. My daddy, after Jim said he was going to marry my mother, but Daddy was a playboy. They'd come to the churches and get different girls and ride them in the buggy and bring them back. So he started going and getting the Wesley girl, which was my mother. She was only about 4 feet and very little. Wore size 3.5 shoe. So he said he fell in love with her. He didn't like the one Uncle Alonzo taken out because she had a big mouth.
Okay.
She and Aunt Ernest's mother. So my mother was very humble, so he started dating her, and then they got married. And they moved with my grandfather, Grandma Lottie, and they moved in with her. And so the very first day he got married, that Sunday morning, they got up. And the two men was out there connecting the horses up, not the mules, the horses, to the buggies. And Grandpa Reuben wanted him to fix the buggy for him and my grandmother. And he could ride the buggy with his little wife in the next one. Well, he got the big mouth and he was talking smart to Grandpa Reuben. And when you know this thing, my grandmother said, my mother and her was standing on the porch. And all of a sudden, Daddy was on the ground. He said, you done got too grown overnight. And my grandfather was a little man. Knocked my daddy flat. The next day he got married on a Saturday. My daddy getting up off the ground, brushing his, and my mother on the steps, and my grandmother upset, and my mother grinning. My grandmother was mad because he done hit him, the oldest son, and my mother giggling. And they went to church. So he said, your pants done got too big already. You just been married one day. And he had connected, not the mules, the horse, the ponies, up to the buggies. But he did something wrong that morning.
Okay.
And so when Grandpa said, you know you're not supposed to do it that way, Daddy said something smart. And that was it. He just flipped. So they went on to church and everything and come back home.
So how long were they married before they started having kids?
Not long. That's why she died. Aunt Addie said. You know Aunt Addie.
Okay.
She said that my mother was a sweetheart. And my daddy, they didn't work for Reuben Thomas. My daddy had the big head. He wanted to get sharecrop from somebody else.
Okay.
So he had his own was going to get his own little farm. And my mother, at the end of the year, you turn your crops in and the government send you a check. So my mother wanted to get a check so they could get them a house. They was living in my grandfather's little shack. And my Aunt Addie said that my mother worked too hard. See, Daddy had some farmland and everything, not with Pa Jim.
Okay.
The Westons, had it on Reuben's land. And then when he got his money, it would be his money. But my mother be home. She would had a baby. She'd go to the field and work in the morning. Then come home and cook the dinner for whoever, and then go back and work a little 2-3 hours in the evening. And Aunt Annie Mae said she and my mother was close, and said my mother worked too hard. Daddy tried to get her to stay home, but she would go and work and pick the cotton up, shake it, whatever they were doing. And Aunt Annie Mae said she worked too hard.
Okay.
And so
who was the first child?
And
Okay.
she was fine. She had.
How old was she when she had the first child? Do you remember?
She was a kid.
17, 18?
Let me think. My grandmother said she was a kid. Daddy was. I'm trying to think how old Daddy was. About 27, 28.
Okay.
And my mother was like 16, 16 or 17.
Right, when she had the first child.
When she had the first child.
Okay.
But she was going to the field, and she was working too hard. So with the first child, she had a hard time. And then there was fuss at Aunt Annie Mae said, but she was stubborn. She wore a size 4 shoe and a size 5 dress, so she was a little petite. My grandmother said when they would be walking through the grass, you'd see Daddy, but you wouldn't see her until they got in the clear. And so she'd have a baby, and her feet were so small they had to order her shoes. And when they ordered 2-3 pair because it was size 2.5 or 3. She had little small feet. And my grandfather Wesley would get on the buggy and come down there to see how his daughter was doing. One prestigious man to another prestigious man.
Okay.
Didn't really like each other, but I'm going to give you respect.
Okay.
And Daddy said that was hard to deal with. You know, Reuben Thomas, the last word. And Grandpa Jim had Indian in him. He would smile, but he gonna say what he had to say before he walked away. And so he said they got.
How far apart from the first child to the second?
Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Then there was Ezel.
How far apart were they?
But every other year, they was close. I can't say now how old. Maybe just
Was it
about
Uncle
a year.
Ben and then?
Uncle Ezel.
I thought David was the second. Uncle
Who's
James.
David?
Uncle James.
No, Uncle James the third.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. See, that was,
Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben. Then,
Ezel. And then
Then
James. Oh, okay, I got Ezel and James mixed up.
when James was born, my mother was so small. She was like little Gail. My grandmother said she never grew. She wore a size 5 dress and about 3.5 shoes. She didn't grow anymore. That was her size. But her mother was kind of a healthy, maybe 5 feet tall. Didn't work in the farm. They always had women and men did the washing, and then they had this big room where you eat in the dining room. One here, one here. So after then, at Pa Jim's house, go biblical days. You see these the men's fanning this paper up in the ceiling. Well, okay. At the Wesley's house, you had a dining room table, real long. It was a table. You had a bench over here, you had a bench here, and you had a chair there that was for Pa Jim. Any guest that came to eat, you either eat here or over on that side. My grandmother sit here. She didn't do nothing but get up, get dressed, put her clothes on, make her face up like a rich white woman with her big ball. And I asked Ernie now, did my grandmother ever work? I never seen her. The only thing she would do, like somebody, hard time, the man need a job, Pa Jim would hire him, and they had little houses. they would stay in there with the wife, the kids, and the wife would help in the big house. She would help cook. Ernest's mother was over the house.
Okay.
Okay, she would either help cook or they to wash or whatever. She helped in the house. My grandmother didn't do anything. I got a picture of her and them, the whole family. So then my grandmother, when dinner time comes, she'd take this spoon, go in the kitchen, the big stove, taste everything. And if it tastes good, her permission, then whoever was bad that day, they would put this paper, and whoever was bad had to go into the dining room and stand there in the corner. You know, you seen that on TV. And the biblical days, they fan this paper to keep the flies and the bugs. And they had to stand there 2-3 days and be the last one to eat. Okay? So now, I never did get on that list because my aunt and my grandmother wasn't afraid of my dad, but they call him a little black son of a bitch behind his back.
What is that? Who's that?